Today, we're delving deep into the world of motorcycle clubs to uncover the most formidable foes of the legendary Hells Angels. Buckle up as we explore the intense rivalries, gritty confrontations, and untold stories behind these notorious adversaries. From the relentless Vagos MC to the enigmatic Lysander De R and the legendary Schnitzel Walter, get ready for a wild ride through the underworld of motorcycle gang.
The world is at war, and those who fight in it are returning home forever changed. Some are physically scarred, others emotionally traumatized. As they try to adjust to life after war, a new subculture is emerging, one that will come to define an era. Motorcycling has become a popular pastime among veterans who seek the thrill of the open road and the camaraderie of their fellow riders. And from this unlikely source, a new kind of brotherhood is born. In this world, Otto Friedli founds the infamous Hells Angels, who become a feared and revered symbol of rebellion and freedom in the 1960s counterculture. But the Hells Angels are not alone in their quest for dominance. Another club, the Vagos Motorcycle Club, has also emerged on the scene. Founded by a group of Mexican Americans in San Bernardino, California, the Vagos are known for their green colors and their fierce loyalty to their members. And so begins a rivalry that captivates the nation, a battle between two titans of the motorcycle world. But it is more than just a turf war. It is a clash of cultures, a clash of values, and a clash of everything that makes America what it is. And as the conflict escalates, the nation watches in awe, wondering what will become of these two legendary clubs. Green Nation, inside the deadly world of the Vagos. As the Hells Angels continue to expand and open charters in American cities, the club's original founder, Friedli, finds himself in prison. After serving his sentence, he decides to leave the club in the late 60s, creating a power vacuum in the leadership of the notorious motorcycle gang. But it doesn't take long until a new king is crowned, Sonny Barger. He is one of the most important figures in the club's history, and rises quickly through the ranks to become the most famous member of the Hells Angels. As the Hells Angels vie for the top spot, they face competition from many other clubs, including the Vagos Motorcycle Club. Rudy Esparza and 6 other men form the Vagos, which quickly expand and make headlines in the public eye. The Vagos MC members are easily recognizable by their green colors and their emblem that features the Norse god of mischief, Loki, riding a motorcycle. The patch was created by a member of the Bear-Do chapter while they were in prison and is considered an honor for every member to wear. The gang's reputation for toughness is reflected in their motto, "We give what we get." The Vagos MC is commonly identified by the number 22, which corresponds to the letter V, the 22nd letter of the alphabet. They also use the slogan VFFV, which stands for Vagos Forever, Forever Vagos, to demonstrate their loyalty and brotherhood. Similar slogans are used by other biker gangs like the Bandidos. The gang is often referred to as the Green Nation due to their preference for the color green, which is prominently displayed on their clothing, logos, and accessories. The motorcycles of the members are typically black and green, and they also wear leather jackets and t-shirts in these colors. In 1974, the Vagos make national news with the William Welton case. William, a student at the University of New Mexico, is found dead after a night out at a bar near campus. The police eventually narrow their investigation down to a group of 4 Vagos bikers who had been passing through the area on their way to Los Angeles. Although the bikers maintain their innocence, they are eventually arrested and held in prison while the authorities search for evidence. Desperate to solve the case, the authorities place an undercover investigator in the cell with each of the bikers. One of the men eventually breaks and gives a false confession, leading to harsh sentences for the remaining 4. The situation seems hopeless until the real perpetrator, Kerry Rodney Lee, turns himself in 17 months later. Lee is known for his involvement in narcotics trafficking and is also a police informant. On that fateful day, Lee meets Welton in a bar, and the two hit it off at first. However, the night takes a deadly turn when they get into a heated argument that ends in tragedy. With the true culprit behind bars, the Vagos are cleared of any wrongdoing, and the case is finally closed. But the biker world continues to be filled with tension and competition, with various clubs vying for supremacy. The Vagos now have a 3-figure membership and are also established in the underworld. The police get wind of the whole thing and launch several investigations into the motorbike club. The authorities arrest more than a dozen members of the Vagos in October 1998. The arrests come about through an undercover investigation that lasts more than 2 years. The bikers are alleged to have violated drug and weapons laws in the process. But the Vagos are hit even more by law enforcement. George Rowe, a hard-working construction worker whose life is turned upside down by a tragic incident. One summer evening in 2003, George loses a dear friend in a brawl with the notorious Vagos biker gang at a local pool hall. Fueled by grief and a desire for revenge, George knows he can't take on the Vagos alone. But rather than giving up, George decides to take a different approach. He offers to work as an FBI informant and infiltrate the Vagos. And so, George begins a dangerous double life, becoming a trusted member of the gang while secretly gathering intelligence for the FBI. Over time, George works his way up the ranks of the Vagos, earning their respect and even hosting their meetings in his own home. He even finds love in this new world, marrying a woman who knows nothing of his undercover work. But on March 9, 2006, everything changes. The authorities have gathered enough evidence to finally take down the Vagos, and George knows it is time to act. He reveals his true identity to his wife and offers her the chance to enter witness protection with him. Because of George's work as an informant, countless members of the Vagos are arrested and sentenced to long prison terms. Biker battle begins. The Vagos challenge the Hells Angels. The Vagos are strong, but there is an undisputed king in the biker scene, the Hells Angels. For years, the Hells Angels and the Vagos have managed to stay out of each other's way, respecting each other's territories. But all that changes on a fateful day in January 2010. Santa Cruz has long been known as Hells Angels territory, a place where the club holds sway and has cemented its dominance. But on that day, the Vagos decide to venture into enemy territory. 3 members of the Vagos MC, feeling emboldened, drive into Santa Cruz, determined to make their presence felt. Outside a Starbucks, they encounter a few Hells Angels members, and a verbal altercation ensues. The tension is palpable as the 2 groups exchange heated words. Suddenly, the Vagos are ready to leave, but the Hells Angels are not done with them yet. They mount their bikes and chase after the Vagos. The Vagos are on their way with 2 motorcycles and a car. But the Hells Angels are not to be deterred. They chase the Vagos through the streets, determined to show them who is boss. The tension is high as the 2 groups finally collide, resulting in a violent fistfight. In the end, no one is seriously hurt, but the incident leaves deep scars. A feud is triggered between the 2 clubs that will simmer for years to come. The Hells Angels see the Vagos as a threat to their dominance, while the Vagos are not going to back down from a challenge. With the threat of violence and chaos hanging over the biker world like an ominous dark cloud, it has become an even more dangerous place. On September 23, 2011, the simmering tensions between the Vagos and Hells Angels come to a boiling point in Sparks, Nevada. Both clubs happen to be at the Nugget Casino on that fateful day, and it is clear that a confrontation is going to take place. And it does. But this time, it is not just a fistfight. This time, a deadly blow is struck. The president of the San Jose chapter of the Hells Angels is fatally injured. Surveillance cameras capture the incident, and the authorities have no trouble identifying the culprit. This action takes the dispute between the 2 clubs to a whole new level. Retaliation is swift, with a member of the Vagos being injured in a drive-by shooting at a rally just 1 day later. The situation is escalating rapidly, and the future looks bleak. The tensions between the Vagos and Hells Angels have reached a boiling point. The 2 clubs have been engaged in a violent feud, and the deadly altercation takes place on the 23rd of April 2022, outside the Marquis Bar in San Bernardino. The violence escalates, leaving 1 Hells Angels member dead and 4 others injured. But the summer of 2022 brings more bloodshed. The Vagos organize a run in honor of fallen veterans, and they are riding on a Nevada highway when they notice they are being followed by 5 Hells Angels. As they drive alongside each other, the Hells Angels attempt to knock the Vagos off their bikes. The situation quickly turns violent, and one of the Hells Angels opens fire. 6 people are injured, and the authorities swiftly apprehend the perpetrators. Yet even with several members of both clubs in pre-trial detention, some sources speculate that the feud may not be over. The deep-rooted animosity between the Vagos and Hells Angels continues to boil over, leaving more casualties in its wake.
Now let's dive deeper into the turbulent world of Lysander De R. Formerly at the helm of the Hells Angels Harlem chapter, De R's leadership was synonymous with chaos and an unprecedented level of violence. His actions not only tarnished the reputation of the Hells Angels, but also drew the attention of law enforcement. He is one man the Hells Angels regret admitting, and there's more to his story.
More than a dozen members of the Hells Angels are being arraigned on criminal charges at the downtown courthouse.
We start with breaking news out of East Spokane. Federal agents and Spokane police raided the Hells Angels clubhouse this morning. Police only telling 4 News Now they had a search warrant.
17 members and associates of the Hells Angels are facing criminal charges in a violent attack on 3 African-American men in Ocean Beach back in June.
As of today, the Hells Angels is considered the most feared and the most ruthless motorcycle club in the world. They live dangerously and fear no man. Over the years, what started as a motorcycle club has wielded so much power despite frequent raids and arrests by the police. With approximately 3,500 members, the Hells Angels have hundreds of chapters in over 50 countries and are now spread across the globe. Several countries have banned the club over fears of them wreaking havoc. Today, we will be looking at a man who got the Hells Angels banned overseas. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at how Hells Angels even started. History of the Hells Angels. On 17th March 1948, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club was founded in Fontana, California, not by the late Ralph Sonny Barger, as you might have thought. The club came into existence when a group of smaller motorcycle clubs decided to merge to form a formidable force. While this is still up for debate, the early days of Hells Angels are credited to motorcycle enthusiast Otto Friedli, even though Friedli had denied and disputed the claim several times. According to the motorcycle club's official history, they got the name from a World War II veteran, Arvid Olsen, better known as Flying Tiger. It is believed that Olsen was a close friend of Friedli after the war but never joined the club. During the war, Arvid Olsen flew with a squadron nicknamed the Hells Angels, a name they got from a film Howard Hughes produced in 1930. It was from the squadron nickname that Friedli adopted the name for the club. It is still unclear who started the club, but our focus is on how a small motorcycle club from California defied all odds to become the most popular, feared, and powerful 1% motorcycle club in the world. The Hells Angels had nothing to their names. However, as time went by, they came up with a structure and certain rules for people who wanted to be admitted to the club. The rules were eventually formalized and implemented. One of the rules was that members must be voted into the club unanimously by all members of the chapter. They also had a very strict dressing rule. Vests were strictly an important part of the dress code and must never be destroyed. The rules also featured the Code of Silence, a mandatory rule that members must remain quiet about the activities of the group. In other words, what happens in the club stays in the club. They have no room for snitches. They also agreed that women are not allowed to be members of the club. However, they have some sort of arrangement for ladies who want to join the club. They're usually called the old ladies and have rules there are to live by. A veteran old lady once anonymously revealed that they are taught to respect their men, and one of the best ways to go about it was to not touch their vest or bike or lean against their patch when riding. Later on, Hells Angels caught the attention of Hollywood, and movies like Hells Angels on the Wheels, The Wild Angels, and Hells Angels 69 projected the club to the world and inspired many people in different parts of the world to look for the closest chapter to them and become a member of the legendary Outlaw Motorcycle Club. The Hells Angels was still assumed to be a decent club of bikers until the Altamont Festival incident. The Altamont Festival in partnership with Boxster. In December 1969, the Hells Angels were hired as stage security at the Altamont Festival, a free concert by the popular British rock band, the Rolling Stones. According to reports, the club members were given $500 worth of beer as payment for their service. All they had to do was keep things orderly, but they did the exact opposite of that.
I don't like unity. A guy's got a gun out there and he's shooting at the Hey, there's that. He's got a gun. Hey, people, come on, let's be cool.
During the concert, the club members thought the best way to keep the rowdy crowd in check was by resorting to violence.
What happened here anyway?
Yeah, he pulled out a gun.
He did?
Yes, the Hells Angels took the gun away from him. One of them has it now, he showed it to me. And they proceeded to put him down on the ground and start kicking him. And he has a couple stab wounds in his back and one over his ear. Tried to keep him alive, and when we got here, the doctor checked him out, and that was it. Pronounced him dead.
At one point, an 18-year-old black fan called Meredith Hunter got into a fight with a member of the clubs. He believed the gang members had treated him that way because of his color. When he brought out his gun in self-defense, they stabbed him. The band saw the trouble but never knew what had gone down. So they continued with their show, since ending the show that early would likely cause a riot. In the end, the event was a mess. The Stones were angry that they were being blamed for the chaos. On the other hand, the Hells Angels were angry as they felt the band had let them take the fall for Hunter's death. After this incident, the Hells Angels became more notorious. A partnership with Willem van Boxtel, an unruly youth who idolized Sonny, almost ruined the reputation of the club. Boxter, better known as Big Willem, was a rebellious youth who looked up to Sonny Barger and the Hells Angels. In 1973, Boxtel founded his biker gang, which he named the Kreidler Plug East. The next year, Boxter mercilessly beat the owner of a convenience store to celebrate his 18th birthday. But that was not all. Boxter later came back to beat the man up again after he called the police and got Boxter arrested for assault. In September of that same year, Boxter and his gang members stormed a school where they beat two teachers with some schoolboys and schoolgirls. The husband of one of the two school teachers attempted to rescue his wife from his hands, but Boxter made sure he taught him a lesson and sent him rolling down the stairwells. As if he had not done enough, Boxter left the school and went across the street to beat the owner of a snack bar. He smashed the poor man's head so hard that he landed in the hospital. The gangster would not stop his rampage until the Amsterdam police arrived at the scene to stop the madness. Eventually, Boxter and 11 of his gang members were found guilty of assault and sentenced to 6 years behind bars. However, Boxter managed to appeal his sentence, and it was reduced to 6 weeks due to age. Once he was out, Boxter began to call his gang the Hells Angels. At this point, he never sought permission from Sonny, which was a dangerous thing to do. When gang members from a British outlaw biker gang called Mad Dogs came to Amsterdam, Boxtel and his followers welcomed them with beatings to prove to them that Amsterdam belonged to the Hells Angels. As a result of this violence, the city of Amsterdam decided to give Boxtel 172,500 guilders, which was equivalent to over $120,000 in 2006, to build a clubhouse for his gang. In return, he would stop being violent. This showed to what extent the city was willing to go to avoid his trouble. They also added that they would be donating 21,300 guilders every year, which was equivalent to $12,772 in 2006 to him, so he could hold charity events and teach young people about motorcycle riding. In 1977, Sonny heard about the Golden Boy who had been wreaking havoc using the name of his gang, Hells Angels. He decided to reward Boxter by recognizing him as a member of the real Hells Angels family and giving him the approval to use the club's Death's Head logo. On October 28, 1978, 2 American Hells Angels from the Oakland chapter came down to Amsterdam to give Boxtel his full patch and declared him the president of a full-patch Hells Angel chapter. In the 1980s, the city of Amsterdam eventually ended Boxter's yearly grant after they realized that he spent all the money that was meant to go to charity on his clubhouse, which he named the Angel Place. Now that Boxtel had received the blessing of Sonny and was now the president of the Amsterdam Hells Angels chapter, he set to work and began expanding the Dutch Hells Angels. In 1980, Boxtel opened a new chapter in Haarlem, Ruthless Lysander De R. While the Amsterdam chapter operated quietly under the radar for some time, the Haarlem chapter did the opposite. The chapter was soon associated with all forms of violence while being led by Lysander De R. During Lysander's tenure, the Haarlem chapter went through a significant transformation. The chapter was known for its strict and aggressive culture. All members had to adhere to the directives of their leader. When Lysander assumed the presidency in 2014, his tenure was characterized by an excessive amount of criminal activities. In fact, this high level of violence and disregard for law and order extended beyond the borders of Harlem, reaching neighboring towns. Smuggling, extortion, bribery, robbery, and all forms of criminal activities became the order of the day, all thanks to the Hells Angels chapter. In August 2014, the tension reached its peak, and things almost got out of hand when a rival motorcycle gang decided to organize a bike show in a venue repeatedly targeted by the Harlem chapter. This didn't go well with members of the Harlem Hells Angels chapter, who resorted to multiple arson attacks. Amid the chaos, the building's owners and family constantly received threats from the club. This cycle of violence continued between 2014 and 2015 and was so crazy that about 3 rival clubhouses were burnt. Even the mayor of Harlem was not spared and had his car burnt by the gang. It is believed that members of the Harlem chapter set the mayor's car on fire as an act of revenge after he announced his plans to crack down on the activities of the gang in the city. These attacks and violence would later have long-lasting consequences for the motorcycle club. Reflecting on the incident, the mayor hammered on the deteriorating relationship between his office and the Hells Angels. Here's the thing, before Lysander took over, the mayor had a good relationship with the Harlem Hells Angels chapter. They were on speaking terms, and he could have a telephone call with the former president anytime he wished. This way, the motorcycle club and the mayor's office have been able to work together and iron out issues. However, once another regime took over, they cut off all communication with the mayor, which caused the tension. Mongols versus Hells Angels. In April 2016, members of the Harlem chapter were involved in a violent altercation with members of the Mongols motorcycle club. The chaos that erupted in the lobby of a hotel soon got real as punches were thrown left and right, while furniture was turned into weapons. It was only a matter of time before sounds of gunshots filled the air. No life was lost during the scuffle. Nevertheless, it was another proof that the Harlem chapter was always resorting to violence instead of resolving matters amicably. A Dutch newspaper got insider information about what motivated the conflict. According to the insider, who remained anonymous, Lysander fed on disunity and often turned the motorcycle club into a battleground during his tenure. He was described as a tyrant and manipulative leader who only saw himself as the sovereign ruler and disregarded the opposition. But that was not all. Lysander would go to any lengths to ensure that his regulations were mercilessly enforced. Even though some charter had issues with his style of leadership and his tyrant moves, they remained passive, hoping for a resolution to the chaos. Fast forward to July 2018, the law caught up with Lysander. He was found guilty of extortion, threats, and violent acts, and was sentenced to 9 years behind bars. Not long after, the Dutch government decided to ban the Hells Angels motorcycle club in May 2019, claiming that what began as a motorcycle club has evolved over the years into a criminal organization. However, you would think Lysander would accept defeat and quietly serve his jail term, since he contributed largely to the ban of the Hells Angels in the Netherlands. But of course, he was a tough nut to crack. He did the exact opposite. A few days after the judge banned the Hells Angels, Lysander, who was still behind bars, founded a new motorcycle club, which he named the Hardliners MC. The club's logo is almost identical to that of the Hells Angels. It was clear as crystal that this was a deliberate act of defiance. But Lysander did more. Even though he had been expelled from the Hells Angels, likely due to the misconduct that led to the Dutch ban, he appeared eager to provoke the controversy. Not only was the logo the same colors as the Hells Angels, it had similar typography, except that instead of a skull emblem, the Hardliners rigged a shark emblem. In recent years, the Hardliners Motorcycle Club has experienced some growth. It is believed that the notable growth is a result of the club's lenient membership rules. Unlike the Harlem Charter, the Hardliners have made it easier for people to join the club and have parted ways with some of their strict policies. As a result, they have experienced faster growth and are spreading to other parts of the country. Interestingly, they are also no longer on the radar of law enforcement, since the authorities are now focused on busting major and established motorcycle gangs like the Lysander De MC and several others. As of January 2022, Hardliners boast about 200 members spread across 22 charters. Since the founding of the Hardliners MC, the club has grown into one of the largest OMGs in the Netherlands. On the other hand, Lysander is still in jail doing what he knows how to do best, threatening violence, manipulating the inmates, and asserting his dominance as the unofficial leader of the enigmatic. According to sources from the jail, Lysander has turned the jail into his playground and is easily coordinating criminal activities from behind bars. The former Hells Angels leader has wielded such authority over the years that he enjoyed comfort and several extraordinary privileges. For example, he dictates the schedule for vacuuming and eats any meals he desires. In other words, he calls the shots, and the prison staff are at his beck and call. Lysander can move across the entire prison and has access to staff computers and phones. He has intimidated both the staff and the inmates, thereby creating an environment where no one would want to step on his toes. Any allegations leveled against Lysander in prison have always miraculously disappeared, while the one who filed them faces the consequences. Even though there has been surveillance footage of the Hardliners founder breaking the law in prison, the government has turned a blind eye over fears of repercussions. The most recent development involves the authorities relocating him to another prison after they found a hit list of the prison staff he wanted to harm in his cell. His lawyers have, however, refuted these claims. On March 8, 2024, the Dutch government banned the Hardliners MC, citing that the club has encouraged, facilitated, and ordered members to commit criminal activities. But as we all know, this is definitely not the end of the club, but probably the beginning of a new beginning. As we turn our focus to the next chapter in the ongoing saga of the Hells Angels adversaries, we find ourselves amidst the gritty backdrop of one of Europe's largest red light districts. Here, a fierce battle for supremacy unfolds as the newly emerged Mongols motorcycle club stakes its claim in the city's underworld. Led by the enigmatic figures Arash Ruya and Erkan Uzun, the Mongols plunge headlong into a world of drugs, violence, and power struggles, setting the stage for a showdown of epic proportions.
This woman carried out a murder contract on a Hells Angels boss. In the heart of one of the largest red light districts in Europe, a battle for power, money, and honor unfolds. It is a time when the newly formed Mongols seek their share of the city's underworld, diving headfirst into the realm of drugs and the red light district. Led by the enigmatic figures Arash Ruya and Erkan Uzun, this biker war blazes a trail across the underworld, igniting a fire that consumes them all. The hatred between the Hells Angel Dari Faisalahi and the Mongol Arash Ruja runs deep. Arash threatens his rival with voice messages.
You know what, Dari? I'll tell you what. You know me. The Hells Angels have to kill me. I won't be stopped until I'm in the ground. And which one of you is willing to kill me? Nobody wants to go to jail for 15 years. I want 15 years in prison. For my honor, I want 15 years in jail. My money.
Apparently, Arash and Erkan know no taboos at that time. In a video, for example, they announce that they will also attack the children of their opponents if necessary.
Brotherhood. I'll kill him, his mother, his sister, and his children.
Normally, the family members are left out of the mix with the bikers. It's really only about the members, the so-called full members, prospects or hang-arounds of the respective biker group. And the families are actually kept out of it and have a certain protected space. And that has been breached, at least verbally, by some people.
Presumably, the Hells Angels took revenge in the summer of 2016. An unknown perpetrator shoots Arash Ruya and his girlfriend Lisa S. Both survive seriously injured.
I got a shot through my index finger. It pulled all my bones with it into the hand area. Here you see. How do you say it again? Whoever shouts in a valley also hears an echo.
Obviously, the man wants revenge, doesn't he?
Vigilante justice is just a no-go with me. A no-go. I accept the German state and will not pursue revenge.
As we know today, Arash does indeed want revenge. Despite being confined within the walls of a prison, Arash Ruja's influence continues to resonate. While the silence surrounds Arash in his current incarcerated state, it does not dampen his determination to exert control and manipulate from behind bars. While serving his sentence, Arash orchestrates a deadly plan, the assassination of Dariush Faisulahi, the notorious biker boss of the Hells Angels. To carry out the hit, Arash hires a Bulgarian hitman named Angel I, who is promised 10,000 euros as payment. Complicating matters, Arash's 73-year-old father, a taxi driver, becomes implicated in the crime, motivated by a desire to restore the family's honor and seek revenge against those who attacked his son. Arash's girlfriend, Lisa S., plays a crucial role in the plan. Investigators can reconstruct quite precisely how the assassination took place. The girlfriend of Arash Ruja leaves her flat shortly before midnight. Lisa S. drives towards the Reeperbahn in a Mercedes coupe. The young woman picks up the Bulgarian hitman Angel I near the main railway station. He has a 7.65 caliber pistol with him. Lisa S. and the hired gunman are on the streets around the Reeperbahn. They are looking for their victim. At around 10:50 p.m., they spot a conspicuous Bentley in a side street. It is the car of biker boss Faisulahi. Lisa S. reports the explosive news directly to the client in prison, and in an unusual way. She sends an SMS to a flirting portal of a TV station. The content of the SMS ends up in the teletext and can be read live by Arash Ruja. This is how frighteningly simple the communication to prison works. Specifically, the young woman writes,
"Honey, I found the most beautiful dress ever. Too beautiful. I'll try to check in at midnight. I love you."
Faisulahi unknowingly drives away from a restaurant, and at a traffic light, Lisa S. positions her Mercedes next to his car. Seizing the opportunity, Angel I pulls out his 7.65 caliber pistol and fires 5 shots at Faisulahi. Despite the quick response of 3 police officers who hear the gunshots, the assailants manage to escape the scene. Investigations lead to the identification of the Mercedes through its license plate and a SIM card, eventually tracing the involvement back to Lisa S. Further developments reveal that Lisa S. plans to visit Arash in prison, which provides the police with an opportunity to wiretap their conversation. The wiretapped conversation becomes a crucial piece of evidence during Lisa S.'s trial, resulting in her receiving a 12-year prison sentence for her role in the crime. Meanwhile, rumors circulate about a potential motive for the assassination, suggesting that Faisulahi had ordered a previous attack on Arash and Lisa S., though the truth behind these claims remains unproven. Arash's father is also arrested and sentenced to 9 years in prison for his involvement in planning the crime. Angel I, the shooter, receives a 6-year prison sentence, and his testimony serves as mitigating evidence against the others. The story highlights the destructive consequences of the power struggle and revenge between rival biker clubs, leaving only losers in its wake. Throughout the investigation, the police face challenges in extracting information from the Reeperbahn community. However, they demonstrate their determination and investigative capabilities, at least for this particular case, bringing some closure to the tragic events that unfolded.
As the dust settles on the battlefield of ambition, we shift our gaze to a new breed of contenders vying for control. Among them is the audacious Schnitzel Walter, a rising star driven by insatiable greed and a hunger for opulence. But what begins as a bid for power and wealth soon escalates into a full-blown clash of titans, shattering the club's long-standing principles and plunging it into chaos. Will it survive this time? Imagine being born into a typical middle-class family in Frankfurt, just growing up like any other kid, and then turning up into one of the most revered Hells Angels. But then, before you enjoy the throne, the crown is snatched away right under your nose and you're left crumbling in despair. Well, that's exactly what happened to Schnitzel Walter, the German Hells Angels president. And his ascent to the top seat is marred with chaos and controversy, all in the name of loyalty. And when Frank Hainbuth goes to prison in 2013, all hell breaks loose in Germany's underworld. Younger, ambitious gunslingers have set their eyes on the throne, and all they care about is money and luxury. Something that's supposed to be a peaceful transition turns into an intense clash that breaks all the club's cardinal rules. Brothers turn against brothers, clubhouses become battlegrounds, and the scent of rebellion hangs in the air. For the next few years, it'll be a chaotic, blood-soaked spectacle. Hells Angels clubhouses will fall like dominoes, and prominent members will be assassinated, and it culminates in the club being officially banned by the German justice system. But amidst the chaos, Can Walter hold his ground against the relentless tide of rebels? Can he defy the whispers of being old school and steer the club towards a new dawn? Or will he go down the drain like his predecessor? Unfortunately, it's the beginning of his downfall. Walter and the Angels. Born into a middle-class family in the heart of Frankfurt, Walter has an ordinary childhood. Sibling squabbles, school shenanigans, and the occasional mischief are part of his upbringing. And through it all, he never once seems like someone who would go on to become a legendary Hells Angels figure. He breezes through school, showcasing exceptional courage and discipline. But amidst the chaos of growing up, one thing remains constant: his fascination with motorcycles. However, before he dives into the world of motorcycle clubs, he takes a detour into the ring. He is good at boxing, and he aspires to make it a professional career. But as fate would have it, he doesn't follow the path for long. So in his 20s, he takes a major leap into the wild world of Hells Angels, joining the newly minted West End chapter.
Walter embraces bike life with the ease of a seasoned rider. He forms an unbreakable bond with the club and its values, and he rises through the ranks in record time. When the time is right, he earns the title of the president of the West End chapter, taking up the throne with the swagger of a true Hells Angels. At the same time, another man is making a name for himself in the Hells Angels across town.
Learning from the best. Frank Hanbuth is synonymous with power and influence in the Hells Angels realm. And he has worked his way up the leadership ladder through the Hanover Hells Angels chapter presidency, making it the richest and most powerful chapter in Germany. By the time Walter is the president of his chapter, Hanbuth is the national president of the entire Hells Angels in Germany. Hanbuth becomes Walter's mentor, and under his tutelage, he learns the ropes of Hells Angels leadership. But being the club's president, Hanbuth is involved in illegal activities that come with the position, from territory wars to illegal gun possession and drug trafficking. So the police are hot on his heels. Fast forward, and he escapes arrest in Germany, fleeing to Spain, where he starts a new life with a new club. But even in Spain, the authorities soon catch up with him. And on July 23, 2013, he gets arrested in Mallorca. Meanwhile, in Germany, Schnitzel Walter is selected as the new national president, and he clearly has big shoes to fill. Rebellion all round. Walter is the new captain of the Hells Angels ship, and he's hoping for a smooth road ahead. But before he can even hit top speed, there's a massive pothole in his way: his former protege, Aygun Mukuk. Mukuk is part of the younger generation, which believes that it's their time to take over. Once Walter's right-hand man, he doesn't want to sit back and be led. He wants to lead. So he starts a rebellion, following in Turkish biker Neko Arabatsi footsteps. And in June 2014, Mukuk orchestrates a coup against Walter with Arabatsi's nod. He storms into Katana Club, a hotspot in Frankfurt's financial district, and starts shooting. But in the midst of the chaos, he also takes a hit. A bullet dangerously close to his heart. With a mix of luck and fate, he survives. However, the rocker landscape is scarred because 4 other members of his faction end up seriously injured. To make matters worse, the shooting ends up in the national headlines, and it catches the attention of detectives who have been following the club's events closely. And that's when Walter decides he's had enough. He's not going to back down, and he's not going to let anyone undermine him anymore. So he tries to show Mukuk the door. But Walter's tactics are outdated and ineffective. Mukuk not only dodges expulsion, but he is also given permission to start his own charter months later, the Gearson Hells Angels. But this is not the end of Walter's troubles. The club, in a shocking twist, contemplates putting him out in bad standing. This would simply mean kicking him out, where he would be on his own, and everyone who has a grudge would be invited to take a swing at him. Walter is distraught. Is this how they repay his dedication to the club after serving them for all this while? Well, he's not one to shy away from a challenge, so he decides to take his chances. He's brought before the club's jury, who would determine his fate by a vote. Luckily, most of them are his peers and vote in his favor, dodging expulsion by a whisker. However, the victory comes at a cost. He loses the support of his fellow angels across Europe. From the Danes to the Italians and the Benelux countries, They all pledge allegiance to Arabatsi and Mukuk. This leaves the club in disarray. And one question lingers on. Will it survive? Cooling things down. Things have been hitting up now, and the chaos doesn't show any signs of hitting the brakes just yet. The conflict carries on into 2015, when the internal squabbles get even more heated. Mukuk and his friends hire assassins to go after Walter, and there are several failed assassination attempts on Walter's life. But in 2016, things finally start looking better. There are no shootings, and all that's left is a cold war between the chapters. Well-wishers unite both internal and external forces to bring the warring parties to the discussion table and find a way forward. But talking about peace is easier said than done when there are different factions of the club willing to do anything to get their hands on power. Finding truce between Walter and Mukuk. In March 2016, a crisis meeting is held at the Steigenberger Airport Hotel. But the two rocker factions are like oil and water. They just don't mix. Walter and his vice president do not agree with most proposed terms, as they feel they favor Mukuk and his group more. Meanwhile, the peace talks turn into a verbal battlefield quickly, and two of Mukuk's men try to start a fight during the meeting. And for disrupting an important meeting with their hot-headedness, they are expelled from the club by a unanimous decision made by both parties. But they just can't leave silently. On Ascension Day, May 5th, 2016, the expelled duo rides past Stolze Platz, where Hell's Angels are meeting at the Helium Bar. They provoke the bikers as they drive by, and in broad daylight, shots are fired. The situation seems to be getting out of hand. And due to the rising cases of impromptu dive-by shootings, the authorities place sanctions on the club. The winged skull and the Hell's Angels lettering are declared illegal to wear in public. And rocker insignias are also stripped from all clubhouses, leaving them painted in plain colors. These bans accelerate the peace talks. And finally, an agreement is reached between the two parties. Mukuk gets to mind his Giersen chapter, and Walter clings to his West End chapter. The national presidency, however, becomes a vacant throne, waiting for the dust to settle before it is filled. But peace is a fickle friend on the outlaw motorcycle biker club scene. Even after shaking hands on it, Walter and Mukuk still can't see eye to eye. Then, on October 7th, 2016, the script takes a dark twist when Mukuk meets a shocking end. He is killed in cold blood by 17 shots at close range in front of his own clubhouse. The identity of the perpetrators remains a mystery, and Mukuk's chapter is left leaderless. Any dreams of revenge evaporate like smoke rings in the wind. But even though it's over, everyone believes Walter orchestrated the hit, and the conflict leaves a huge dent in his reputation. Can he still lead his West End chapter with the same vigor and charisma, or will the turbulent times tarnish his legacy as president? In the aftermath, the chaos that had engulfed the Hells Angels in Germany disappear by the end of 2016. But the aftermath is far from a joyride in Walter's world. He reflects on the times when he was full of energy and would do anything for the club. But the chaos has left him in a different state of mind. There remains a battlefield in his mind. Yet even the thought of leaving and abandoning the very essence of the Hells Angels is something that he cannot bear. The club is tattooed on his soul, and the emotional link he has with the club's values is not something he can just throw away. But as much as he wants to stay, Walter struggles to perform his club duties, especially as chapter president. His loyalty is unquestionable, but he's withdrawing. This leads to many of his supporters leaving the club. Some, in search of stability, jump ship to other chapters, leaving Walter and the club in more confusion. Even other small motorcycle clubs begin setting up camp in Hells Angels territory, and there's nothing Walter can do about it. The club is unstable and without a national president, and with no resources at his disposal, he's unable to go against them. Meanwhile, in Spain, Hainbuth hears about the chaos through whispers, rumors, and regular newspaper headlines. But he's only out on bail, and he can't even fly to Germany due to his bail conditions. So he watches as the biggest club in Germany crumbles to almost nothing. And Walter, once the puppet master pulling the strings of the Hells Angels, is left weakened, his influence all gone. The road ahead is uncertain, and it looks like there's no way back to regaining his footing in the Hells Angels once more.